HR person, he cannot be a teacher, all rolled into one.
And really, those
Yes.
are the people who run behind the scenes to make sure things are running smoothly.
Because Daktari here will tell you he has liberty to teach in Nairobi University and teach in Kabianga or teach in Narok. But there needs to be a lower cadre person employed on a permanent and pensionable basis in his department who holds fort when Daktari is not there, who manages his diary. So that if you walked into his office and Daktari is not there, that person will tell you he will be here next week on Wednesday and Thursday.
All right. Dr. Maloba, your points?
Well, the thing is, let me talk about university expansion first, because he has actually touched on it. Now, university education has actually been expanding, but you have to actually identify where this expansion process and the decision of this expansion process is made. The decision for expansion of university education happens as a political agenda. We are never, consulted and asked, do you think capacity for this sort of training is missing and therefore we need to increase it? No. Instead, it has become a campaign forum for politicians. That is why they scramble. Each one of them wants a university, even in their own village. They don't know what a university is in the first place. For them, they think it is development and it is going to increase their political visibility. So what they simply want is, give us another university. All right, fine. Now you have to remember, it is not the lecturers who push for this agenda, politicians do. So they say, okay, fine, let us establish a university. Fine. Now, when you establish a university, it comes with a cost. The cost mostly is at the technical level, the know-how, the people who are actually going to provide the service. It's not the buildings. University of Nairobi doesn't own the buildings. If you walked around there, all those buildings are donated. Mahatma Gandhi, UNESCO, the various embassies, they are the ones who have come up with those buildings. The university is the people who come in there, the technical know-how, the fellows who will give that agenda. Now, when you expand these universities the way they have been doing, and you'll see in political forum, there's a lot of euphoria. They are so ecstatic when a university is being given charters, people greeting each other. They are mostly politicians. You'll never see their lecturers. Now, once that has been done, they give that university, so given a charter, to a university manager. Part of the contractual obligation of that university manager for that charter that has been given to a particular university, it will include expansion. You have to grow the university. Part of this growth, of course, it is not limited to. The growth has to be with the personnel, with the technical capacity that it's going to provide in training, isn't it? But it will also include a reach-out service, which is the creation of these satellite campuses. So now you have to see. They put you in a position. Let's say I've been appointed the vice-chancellor somewhere and been given a university. If I have to expand it, part of it has to be that, and it will be in my contractual obligation. Now, when I do expand, then the cabinet comes around and says, don't ever do this again. Who started the process in the first place? Did you come and consult me? Did you come and consult the people in the education sector to find out that there is a lack of professional capacity in this profession and therefore we need to expand it? No, it was a political decision. There's another thing, which is probably now I'm going to make as the last. The uniqueness of university work. Let me imagine, for instance, a student at the shortest period. We always say you can do your PhD in 3 years. More often than not, it's always more than that. All right? Then you give me a contract, and the contract lasts 2 years. So I start working with you. In the time frame, I decide I don't want to stay in this university anymore. And you have taken that time, 2 years with me. As your supervisor, what happens? Do you start your PhD again? And you see, a PhD is at its highest level, all right? That means the person who will be supervising you must be at the cutting edge of the discipline that you are doing. So what happens when he disengages? And you say he's on contract, he's waiting for his contract to be renewed. What is going to happen?
Dr. Maloba has brought up a very key issue on staff establishment, which we will dive deeper into it. But also here in studio is Emmanuel Manyasa, who is the Uwezo Kenya country manager. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
You have found us really in the middle of the discussion of the review of contracts that we've seen Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i, talking about this week. What are your thoughts on that?
First, my apologies for coming late. And second, I respect the CS a lot. And it is good to admit that there's a problem in the university. I taught in the university for 11 years. I know that there's a problem in the university. Out of those 11 years, 6 years I worked on contract as a tutorial fellow before I became permanent and pensionable. I also think that while there is a problem and the CS may need to address, he's offering the wrong solution as far as issues of contracts are concerned. Why do I think that solution is the wrong one? Because the solution to bring contracts can only expand the cost to the university. Why will it expand the cost? Because when you are permanent and pensionable and when you are on contract, your terms of service are the same except that one is renewed over a period of time. When you are on contract, the university is under obligation to pay you 31% of your basic salary as gratuity at the end of your contract.
Don't you think that's...
that is where the increase in cost will come from. Because when you are permanent and pensionable, university pays 20% of your basic salary to your pension fund.
Okay.
If you are on contract, they pay you 31% at the end of your contract as gratuity. So turning all staff today to contract basis increases the cost to the university by 11% of their basic pay. I don't know whether that has been thought through.
No, you've brought in a different... and Jonathan seems to be agreeing with that.
Yeah, it actually brings that increment in cost. The only value that putting people on contract can bring to the university is if the government is intent on taking universities back to where they were under Moi regime, where you use that for intimidation.
All right.
If that is not the purpose, there's no value of putting people on contract.
Dr. Maloba, Jonathan?
Yeah, and it's basic human resource practice that when the contract is short, there's higher risk. So the value for getting that labor functional is higher. This is basic. It's not rocket science. So the cabinet secretary needs to understand that with the type of numbers we are talking of in the public universities in Kenya, if you turned everybody onto a short-term contract, it is costly on a day-to-day basis. But then it has a disruptive effect. As Dr. was saying here, if you are supervising a PhD student who needs to be at the university for 3 to 4 years, and as the supervisor, your contract is 2 years, what happens when your contract lapses? Where does the student go? Where is the recourse? And this is where I say then the cabinet secretary needs to consult other people and not consult himself alone. He is not the sector. He is only an individual in a larger pool of people.
So what I'm understanding here is that there's also the economic factor that we need to be factoring into this, let alone the issue of quality education that Dr. Maloba has talked about. Here you have a PhD student and he or she is affected by this new announcement, but also the issue of cost. We will see it, and really it comes back to the student school fees. So it has a cycle effect.
Yeah. There's even a bigger issue here. The feasibility that he can actually implement what he's calling contractual engagement for university lecturers. It's not going to be possible first. That's out of the question. Let's just rule it out because the law is very clear. As I can show you right now, if I had time, I show you my letter of employment. I'm a permanent and pensionable employee. If you attempted to reverse my employment status, I will sue you. Do you want to understand the level of, the amount of litigation money that will be used just to be able to reverse that situation. So let's forget about it. That's why he said, let us freeze it, which is also not possible. The reason why it's not possible is because in every payroll situation, there is what we call natural attrition. In fact, if anything, universities are one of those places where the staff, by the time it qualifies to be, say, a lecturer, because there's always a training program, what he has just said, a tutorial fellowship is a training program. That training program leads to a level where you now can be given a lectureship position. By the time you are even at lectureship positions, most people sometimes would be quite aged. Now, by the time you reach senior lecturer, go to associate professor, and go to professor, most of the time, you are already elderly. So now let's imagine then that these people are going to stay alive probably for, maybe up till 80 years. Who is going to replace them? How is natural attrition going to even take care of that so that you can actually have optimum numbers as we speak? And you had already rightly talked about the whole issue about staff establishment. And maybe let me bring it in right now. Universities, as we speak right now, are always understaffed. We are always operating at something like around 65% of staff establishment. This is the reason why some of us don't even go on leave. Because if I have to say I go on leave, who do I leave my
department to?
Yes. And you see, it's a necessary human resource component when you are working that you must be on leave to disengage a little. But we don't have. And the reason is also because we are always having a continuous stream of students coming in, going out, coming in, going out. So when you say contractual level, you want to demoralize this very people who are already understaffed and you want to put them in a precarious position. Why? Because you have a CBA which you have not addressed. And I'm going to talk about the CBA.
Yes, Dr. Maloba also raises a very critical issue on the CBA, the 2013-2017 CBA. We'll be back with this conversation. Before we take a quick break, we just want to remind our viewers that we are live from Nyeri, where today, November